In the 1990s, my father was an architect whose firm contributed to Trump Tower. Observing his work taught me that rules, structure, and precision determine lasting outcomes. Freedom isn't doing whatever you want. It's the right not to be defined by others. In my early schooling, I observed emphasis on certain equity concepts that felt imposed rather than organic. I sensed I was not alone in questioning the prevailing narratives. High school served as a formative environment for observing social and institutional dynamics. Challenging certain narratives often led to marginalization. Education extends beyond factual learning. It often involves competing narratives about identity, history, and values. I decided not to stay silent. I turned my frustration with these textbooks into an article. That was my first bullet. At age 17-18, my first national media appearances demonstrated how a voice and ideas can reach far beyond one's physical presence. I dreamed of West Point and serve in uniform, driven by a commitment to duty and national order. When one path closes, it can redirect energy toward creating a new one. I was convinced affirmative action may have played a role in losing my West Point appointment. This experience transformed me from observer to active advocate. After a brief period at community college, I chose to leave formal studies to pursue full-time activism on the battlefield of ideas. I prepared materials promoting free markets and limited government. Undeterred by lack of formal invitation, I engaged proactively in events and campuses. While many focused on immediate elections, few addressed the long-term struggle for influence on college campuses among young people. I saw an older man there. He looked patient, like he was waiting for someone who could ignite a spark. I walked toward him. I didn't know then that this step would end my years of mediocrity. If you don't turn your values into a brand, others will turn your brand into a joke. Bill said to me, "Charlie, forget college. Let's do something big." In that moment, TPUSA was born. I walked into the sunlight. I didn't realize I'd just declared war on the system. This decision marked the beginning of a sustained effort to challenge prevailing campus ideologies through TPUSA. With Bill's funding, I had nowhere to go but the campus. If you want to change politics, you must first change the vessel that carries at the college campus. At first, my support came entirely from the older generation. They had money and anger, but no clue how to talk to their grandkids. I became their bridge. Power in the new media era no longer belongs to traditional politicians, but to those who master the algorithm. I realized conflict is the hard currency of the internet. By 2015, our summit doubled in size. I saw hunger. The more the establishment suppressed conservative youth, the harder they pushed back. Around this period, I connected with Donald Trump and other Trump family associates, recognizing their disruptive approach to politics. I spoke at the 2016 Republican National Convention in Cleveland, sensing a shift away from traditional GOP establishment politics. Donald Trump's 2016 victory represented a major rebuke to political correctness and establishment norms, energizing our movement. So did we. I took the fight directly to the leftist strongholds. Sitting at Berkeley, I launched the Prove Me Wrong tour that flooded the internet. This was my trench warfare. My on-campus debates and short-form content gained substantial traction online, demonstrating the power of calm, direct engagement. By the late 2010s, TPUSA had expanded significantly beyond campuses into a broader media and activism platform reaching large numbers of young conservatives. The president said on my stage that Charlie did something incredible. In that moment, my bond with the White House was locked. I was his youth army commander. In 2020, the virus arrived, and so did the lockdowns. I told everyone, don't listen to them. This is a compliance test under the guise of science. The 2020 civil unrest and cultural debates intensified our focus on defending foundational American institutions and values. We founded Turning Point Action. My kids went into every swing state knocking on doors. We had to turn ballots into bullets to defend civilization. When the results came, I was as furious as anyone. I stood at rallies shouting that the system betrayed us. If you cannot defend election integrity, you are merely signing a contract of enslavement. Politics alone couldn't save the country. We needed faith. I launched Turning Point Faith. We had to retake the pulpits because churches are political fortresses. AmFest became the Super Bowl of conservatism. Look at these kids. Once labeled misfits, now superstars dominating the mainstream right here. Right here, I realized opposing DEI wasn't enough. We had to dig up its roots. And those roots were buried in the Civil Rights Act half a century ago. True conservatism is not just defense, it is a devastating counteroffensive against the institutional foundations of the left. I began publicly dismantling the MLK myth. I knew it would stir a hornet's nest, and I didn't care. Trump sat across from me, listening to my youth vote analysis. He looked at me and nodded. We were no longer boss and subordinate. We were partners redefining the American right. The 2024 election was an all-out war. My team took over the media center. Traditional networks were dying, while we dominated billions of impressions. We invested heavily in Arizona's ground game through Turning Point Action's Chase the Vote efforts, deploying staff and volunteers for ballot chasing and turnout. By 2025, my voice was everywhere, from commuting cars to campus earbuds. You cannot destroy an idea by destroying a politician, because the idea has already become the air people breathe. I walked directly into the storm of polarization. Half loved me, half hated me, but none could ignore me. This was the stage I earned, and I was just getting started. September 10, 2025. This was the final moment of my life. Fully immersed in addressing the audience at Utah Valley University, I was unaware of the danger from a distant rooftop. I saw that shadow hiding on the roof. In that moment, time seemed to freeze. The bullets of words had been flying for 10 years, but a real bullet only takes a second. A deafening shot struck me. Chaos erupted as the crowd of young people panicked and scattered. In one moment, the event dissolved into fear, watching the very youth I had tried to conquer and awaken scatter in sheer panic. All grand narratives shattered into dust in an instant. I tried to hold my own hand, but I no longer had any weight. I spent my entire life chasing the power of speech, chasing algorithms and votes, but when death arrives, those numbers are nothing but a wisp of smoke. In the hours and days that followed, politicians across the spectrum condemned the assassination. My name dominated headlines nationwide. Some outlets that had long opposed me shifted to formal coverage. The event highlighted the performative nature of much political discourse. Also, some radical leftists who always prided themselves on tolerance and empathy stripped away their masks they celebrated on social media and rejoiced in the streets. Their ignorance and brutality were fully exposed at this moment. History has played the cruelest joke. Decades after Gandhi and MLK sacrificed their lives for nonviolence, their radical followers chose the most violent bullet to eliminate dissent. They awarded me the Presidential Medal of Freedom. This heavy medal hangs on my name, but I can no longer feel its coldness. In this country, it seems you must become a corpse to earn a fleeting moment of consensus. My death did not stop the division. Instead, it became a powder keg igniting even greater hatred. Looking at the furious faces on both sides of the iron gates, I felt an unprecedented despair. I was sent back to my hometown, back to the place where I first started. There was no applause along this road in Arizona, only the sound of rain beating against the car windows. The cold autumn rain washed over the headstones. My family stood under the umbrellas. Their tears were not for politics, but for a son and husband who would never come home. Politics may win the world, but it can never heal a broken family. I saw the faces of my old friends. They inherited TPUSA, inherited my rhetoric. But now I just want to yell at them, be careful, don't let the hatred consume you too. The priest was praying for my soul to enter heaven. But looking at all of this, I found myself achieving a detachment from the very ideology I had fought to the death to defend. The casket sank. I spent my life debating, always wanting to irrefutably defeat my opponents in logic. But now, the earth is irrefutably burying me. The dead cannot debate. Death is the ultimate closer. That dirt buried my flesh, and along with it, my reluctance. I once thought I saw through America's legal ailments, believing that repealing certain acts alone could save this nation. But I was wrong. The root of this country's illness is not in the laws, but in the human heart. When the youth stop trying to use reason and logic to persuade, and instead use violence to purge dissent, the destruction has already begun. A nation accustomed to using physical elimination to solve ideological conflicts is destined for the abyss of self-destructs. The shot hit me, but it is the future of America that will bleed. The crowds will eventually disperse, and the bustling internet traffic will fall silent. The name I left behind will become a symbol for conservatives and a point of contention for opponents. This was not the unity I sought. In this absolute silence, I finally understood. Confrontation cannot bring awakening. Violence only breeds deeper violence. We treated politics as faith, yet turned true faith into a weapon.